Hello everyone, this is José Barbosa and we are here for the dotNET Meetup. I'm from Bangkok and we are running the edition of the dotNET Meetup. Today we have two talks, right? So I will start sharing my screen in a second. So just a minute. Working. Sorry for that. Okay. So I believe my screen is loading. Let me see. Okay, I believe you can see my screen now, right? Uh, leave me a comment if you cannot see the screen, but I believe everything is okay. So have a good night. Have a seat. Take your water. We are going to have two talks today. The first one I will be sharing about the .NET Preview 1, right? .NET 7. We just had a new launch of .NET 7 in 2 weeks, right? It was the first preview. And at 7:30, we have a guest speaker, Vineet. He's going to talk about database histories, right, and auditability in Entity Framework Core, right? Very very interesting feature, and .NET using temporal tables, right? So many times you do a change in your database, many times you need to do some auditing in your database, some changes. I had to do this in the past, right? So we are going to have a talk today. Some other things I would like to highlight. We have the uh, .NET completed 20 years, right? If you started as a .NET developer since the beginner, right? Congratulations, you are completing 20 years of software development, right? You could update your CV, right? 20 years of .NET development, right? More than that, you can see is a lie, right? Uh, so we have also this month, right? So this month's edition, we have, I believe, finished tomorrow, right? The hackathon of Azure plus DevTo, right? If you're a developer, go dev.to, right? DevTo is a very popular developer blogging platform, right? So since the last 1 2 months, we have been running uh, the uh, the hackathon, right? I was take a look in some projects, very very interesting. So if you have any project, submit there, right? You still have time. If you never heard about this, or if you are first time here, I would like to introduce myself and introduce the .NET Thailand community to you, right? We are a passionate community of software developers. We run meetups monthly, right? And every year we try to get everyone together for the .NET Conf, right? Usually in November. Uh, we have the .NET Bangkok Meetup. This is the link you can share. You can scan the QR code, right? I also would like to share with you the .NET Thailand, right? Same thing. You can get your cell phone, scan the QR code, right? And also the Facebook group, right? We are transmitting live on Facebook and YouTube, right? If you wanna join us, we are a very active community. So please go there and interact with us. We have Aaron always there, and Pong and other developers to support you, right? And we are supporting the growth of the .NET Thailand, and also And we are always looking for new members and volunteers and people to help us to organize, right? So these are some of the links, right? I believe with I gave out the message that I had, right, for this edition. So let's start. .NET 7, right? Very interesting. We just had the launch of .NET 6 last year, last November, right? We barely could breathe, and now we have already .NET 7 preview one, right? Let's take a look. Let's install your machine. I will guide you step by step how to do it, right? On your machine, how you can start take a look in the preview. It is pretty okay. I was playing a bit in my machine, and everything looks is working pretty okay, right? The previews of .NET normally they are pretty stable. The only problems you are going to have will be some Visual Studio tooling or some integration with some IDE, right? My name is Jose Barbosa. You can follow me everywhere if you want. You can search by Kidchenko, right? Uh, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, right? I live in Thailand for 4 years. I'm currently a software developer at ThoughtWorks. We organize the .NET Conf every year, right? So probably we are going to see each other in November, right? I hope with the COVID situation, everything gets better and we can do something face to face, right? And we have the .NET Bangkok Meetups. So at ThoughtWorks we are hiring. So if you have any interest, please enjoy us, right? The agenda for today, right? What we are going to talk today, right? There are some confusion about the .NET LTS and the current version, right? And what is the recommendation? What you should do, right? Sysadmin or you have a project system running enterprise, which version of .NET you should be running, right? And how much risk you can take, right? We are going to take a look in the current state of .NET to .NET 6, right? Was just launched. There is a lot of things that we didn't cover yet, and we are going to see the .NET preview one running, right? I remind that Maui, right, the framework for cross-platform development was not released in the .NET 6, right? And one of the things in .NET 7 is about Maui, right? The Maui platform was also, I believe, is in the preview 13, something like that, I believe. Soon we are going to see more updates coming, right? But I believe the product is going to be launched, I believe, in May in the Build conference, right? So the Maui will not be launched during the .NET 7 launch in November, right? If you are a mobile developer, these are some good news, right? And .NET Current and .NET verse, .NET LTS, right? Today, if you basically go to install .NET, you have mostly two versions that you could install, right? .NET 6, right? Or .NET 3, right? Why I'm not say .NET 5, right? If you are going to start some new project about .NET 5, go ready for .NET 6, right? Is the LTS, right? I remind that the .NET 5 is going to go out of support this month, right? It's not LTS. LTS means long-term support, right? Always keep your project in LTS version, right? And we have the preview. .NET 7 was just launched, as you can see, 2 weeks ago, right? And we are going to have a new release of .NET, right? A major release every year, right? And So let's talk about the current state, what happened in the .NET 6 launch and what we have ahead, right? We have the .NET schedule from long time already, right? That Microsoft has been delivering everything that promised at least on the date, right? So we are right now in 2022. Uh, in this year, November, we have the .NET 7 launch, right? That is not going to bring so many changes. It's going to be mostly a consolidation of the versions. We have basically the Maui platform being delivered in the middle, right? Um, and on November, right, we have the .NET conference with the .NET 7, right? And in my opinion, right, in my opinion, today you could be or .NET 6, right? And after the launch, if you are starting new project, you can go for .NET 7. If you know, wait for .NET 8, right? 2023, right? And the .NET 6 was a very important mark because marked the unification of the platform, right? So finally, the merge that Microsoft's been working since 2018, right? Finally finished, and now we have the Mono .NET framework, right? Integrated. We have now WPF on top of the platform, right? And .NET is, in my opinion, one of the best platform now. You are available for cloud, web, desktop, right? Very strong is in desktop development. Mobile. Now we have .NET MAUI, that is basically the evolution of Xamarin. We probably are going to have a talk of .NET Xamarin and MAUI, right, in the next meetup. We are working for that. Gaming and Unity, right? Now you can use the same. Imagine you have the same capabilities and the same basic libraries, right, to develop mostly any code that you need, right? AI. Uh, I have been looking a bit into Spark, right? And now you have wrappers for Spark in .NET that communicates with the Spark cluster running in Java, right? Very. It's an amazing platform to be right now. And now the open source and unification have some problems recently, right? But we hit 5 million developers, one of the most loved language and framework uh, in Stack Overflow, top five language in GitHub, right? And a lot of new people, right? A lot of new developers and new students. We have a new generation, mostly of .NET developer, since become open source, right? And this is very good for the future of the platform. A lot of improvements during .NET 6. We are going to see a bit of this in the .NET 7. Also, Microsoft has a goal to make .NET 6 and 7, right? The .NET platform, one of the best, one the fastest, right, platform in the market, right? And since it became open source, a lot of contributions, right? Only in the .NET 6, more than and almost 7,000 contributions, right? So a big thank you for all the contributors, right? Pretty amazing to see all these movements going on, right? Performance. So we have more or less mostly double the performance, right? We are going to see how to use entity framework, right, for auditing and some temporal tables, right? Would be interesting if you have a upgrade from .NET 5 to .NET 6, right? You have almost 100% of performance improvement, right? Parts of this performance is the stack, right? .NET 6, ASP.NET Core become more performatic by itself, but just entity framework and the carry mechanism also improved by 27%, right? So amazing. Imagine that in time of crisis, right? A simple upgrade of your infrastructure may make you save costs, right? Imagine if you have a now here we are talking about 100%, 92%, right, of improvement in the throughput in the performance with identity framework, right? That is the most realistic scenario that we are going to see in a benchmark, right? So imagine you in an upgrade of your platform, you could reduce, for example, by half your instance running in AWS or in Azure, right? EC2 or containers, right? So what you are paying today, you are going to pay half of this next month, right? So this kind of investment pay itself very fast, right? So we have a lot of things that we are going to build on top of that, right? When I start show the code, I want to you to see because the .NET 7 brings all the .NET 6, right? All the build on top of the platform, right? Using the unified class library. We have simplified the development for C Sharp amazingly in .NET 6 and 7, right? Some features, one of the best features in C Sharp 11 will be related with no validation, right? So we see all these features coming into the platform. Visual Studio don't support. I had some problems, right, with Visual Studio and also Rider in .NET 7. So I will not really recommend for you for a while to do it. Is a little bit buggy, right? But the command line is perfect. The command line is going to work. I also tested some run inside Rider and Visual Studio and works pretty much fine. But in Windows Windows with Visual Studio 2022 you are going to have an okay experience, right? Even with .NET 7, pretty neat experience. But in Mac, right? To with Visual Studio 2019, and you don't have the same usability, right? So for a while for Mac, I will say I'm in the Rider team, right? But Visual Studio for Windows. And let's keep about some main features here. Let's talk about so in C Sharp 10, right? Now if talk a bit also .NET 7, right? Talk about .NET 7, we have C Sharp 11, right? But all the features from C Sharp 10 that was just launched, I would like to highlight again, right? Global usings, right? Is going to make help you to reduce your 100 lines of import in the beginning of the methods of normal libraries, right? Name spacing. I don't know if you my my day a day, right? I have I don't use the same machine to work and as my personal machine, right? So during my day a day, I have .NET 7 installed, and also .NET 6, right? And I had some old projects from .NET 5, right? And the interesting is when you start creating new projects in .NET 5, right? And if you depending of your configuration, your ID, you are going to start using the file scoped namespace, right? This is going to break your build, so take care with that, right? Make sure you have a global .json in the project, right? This is going to help you to avoid these problems. Happening with me in my work during day to day, right? I created a new file and then Rider used the C Sharp 10, right? Templates, right? and with global namespaces and also file scope uh, usings, right? And we have some records, a lot of improvement, right? .NET .NET minimal APIs is play very nice with Ants framework, right? As you see, uh, only the request per second, right? We have 7% of increase with .NET 6, right? And 31% with carry performance, right? So getting the 92%, right, of increase is using the framework, right? The ASP.NET Core, right? Plus anti framework, right? But if you use only anti framework, right, you have 31% into the carry performance, right? And the request per second is almost 70%, right? So we have some new the records now you can be declared as strict, right? Before you can't do that, right? The with expressions, right? You can do with expressions with anonymous object, right? Now, if you have, for example, a record, right? Records are immutable, and to do, we are going to see a bit in the demos. Uh, the with expression, right? So if you need to do a mutation, you can use a with expression. Uh, Now you can add structs, right? Structs. Uh, Constructor instructs, right? Basically these will not change basically not too much, right? Only give because structs they are initialized already with the current value, right? uh, so let's take a look some of the other features, right? And I will go to my console now, right? And let's see some of these things that you can take a look, right? Uh, I want to do a highlight about the Lambda expressions, the syntax for Lambda, right? Pretty cool, right? So I believe I will share uh, my screen. Okay, so now I believe you can see all my screens. Right. So I have a mostly all the projects here they are .NET 7, right? But I have a project uh, on .NET 6 here, right? I want to show you uh, some of the features that we have. So here we have mostly projects in .NET 6 running, right? So I have a request delegate here, right? Before you have to add, you need to add the type of the delegate, right? Now you can just type it as a var, okay? And it's just syntax sugar for the compiler, right? Is mostly one of the themes of the .NET. If the compiler know that this is a object, right? That is going to return a func, right? A func of a nice string in this case in a JSON, right? You can just type as a var. The compiler is a bit more smart on that, right? So we have this uh, we have this class here, right? This now response, right? And this is basically a class, right? And what I could do here, right? What happened? I like to do my response, right? I like to do they as structs, right? So you can change as structs. This is going to make it, uh, it is going to make allocated in the stack, right? What was not sorry, is a record struct record. I believe you can see my screen, guys. You are seeing my screen, right? So before you cannot do a record script, right? So now you can. This mostly allocates a record. You have the same properties of the record, but now it's going to be allocated uh, on the on the stack, right? And now that, for example, this time zone, uh, we are using this now response. Okay, so this is now response, right? So now I could do, for example, a specific time zone, right? And I could use the with operator, right, here, right, to change the properties of this time zone, right? Okay. And so let's come back for the slides. Let me share my screen again. So okay, this gives us the base, right? For we talk about .NET, the preview of .NET, right? So what do we have new into the .NET preview, right? And so always you can see what is happening in the community, right? And where the Microsoft is driving the platform, okay? In the teams of .NET, teams of .NET, teams of .NET, right? You can see what are the goals, right, for the release, right? And so we can see for .NET 6, and also we can change for .NET 7, 7.0, President 8.0, right? So pretty interesting too, right? You can see the roadmap also, right? Let's target roadmap 7, milestone 7, right? So pretty interesting too for you to see everything that mostly enter the framework, right? Dynamic PGO, source code generations, right? Uh, all the features. And let's see what more we have here. Improvements in the JIT, right? Basically the real JIT, right? Intel CET, right? Probably architecture of some compiler option support CET for C++ code. Okay. If are C++ code and if you know what is CET, leave a comment there, right? JIT testing strategies, right? Pretty cool. I love to see the platform, the love that they give to the roadmap and uh, all the things in place, right? And so okay. So moving forward, uh, the open issues. .NET is an open source framework, right? Uh, you can go to GitHub, right? github.com/.NET core, right? A lot of our audience they are beginner in .NET, right? So if you don't know GitHub, and create your account, Joy, and you can submit PRs and see what is going on with the framework, right? So let's see what we have in the preview one, right? You can see the release notes, right? You can see most and the details about the frameworks, about the .NET by itself, and about the frameworks, right? As web developer, I'm mostly interested into the ASP.NET Core development and NC framework development, right? And SDK runtime will be mostly updates for the core, right? And you have the WPF and Windows Form mostly for Windows development and desktop development. Right? So was launched in 2022, right? Preview 7.0100, right? Build 1.22, right? Probably 22.11.0, right? Dot 4, right? Now you have support for a Mac, right? Mac Silicon, right? So you can get the ARM. The ARM are mostly the Mac Silicon, right? So let's take a look. Let's run this in our machine, right? Let's go for .NET download. So as you can see, you can get all versions of .NET. You have the 7 preview, right? And I'm running a Mac, so I'm running mostly x64, right? I downloaded this already. I will not save it again. But mostly, what do you have? .NET version 7.0 preview. Okay, so pretty easy, right? So installation, right? And there is mostly three big areas of improvements, right? The installation is basically next, right? Uh, so there are mostly three big areas of improvements in this version, right? So what is the focus of the team in the moment, right? And .NET MAUI, right? And we also have the cloud native and containers, right? And the upgrade of the .NET apps. We are going to talk about how to do upgrade, right? Modernization of your .NET apps, right? Here are some more details about some features, right? Mostly, we have support for HTTP 3, right? One of the biggest features, and also generation dynamic PGO generations, right, is going to help you basically on the runtime, helping the performance of the app. Now we are doing, I believe, source code generation, right? So from the .NET MAUI preview 13 was released as the same date, right? And basically the team is focusing on ship the RC of the framework between .NET 6 and .NET 7, right? So I believe we are going to have mostly more two or three previews. The team are target for May, right? So more or less in 2-3 months we are going to see the release of Maui, right? If you don't know, Maui is basically the evolution of Xamarin, right? That use C sharp code to create native Android and iOS apps, right? From the native side, right? I have mostly upgrades for the Docker containers, right? Docker containers and also Kubernetes, right? And also there is a lot of evolution in the project Orleans, right? We could bring someday in the future the project Orleans, some app. If there is someone in the audience that interested, please leave the comments to us, right? And about modernization, right? How do you modernize? Is worth to upgrade to .NET 7 in this moment, right? And in case you want to go for the 6, right? I am recommending you upgrade to .NET 6, all your apps from .NET 5, right? And if you're running Windows, right, you can run the .NET Upgrade Assistant, right? I installed this tool in Mac, right? I tried to run one time. This is a .NET tool, right? That is going to help you to migrate your app, right? Need to be running or .NET framework or .NET Core, right? But if it's .NET Core, need to be at least 3. Oh, okay. So this is going to migrate your app, help you to migrate, mostly upgrade the packages, right? And I give it a try. Don't work on Mac, unfortunately. Okay. So move on. Mostly, let's talk about a few of the break changes, right? That we have. It's pretty superficial break changes, right? I didn't notice nothing too different here, right? Mostly what we have is some internal changes, right? I didn't mostly related with nullables, right? So depending of your code, you don't have to worry so much. Okay. And also C#11, right? .NET 7 is going to be launched with C#11, so it's going to be very interesting. The only the feature that I'm expecting mostly is the no validation, right? For C#11 is going to be amazing. So as I mentioned, the upgrade, right? The .NET Assistance upgrade, you can automatize. There is a way to automatize that, right? Automation, you can add some automation, right? And you can download is a global tool, right? .NET tool install -g upgrade assistant, right? And let's see some demos now, right? I have all them step by step in the slides, but let me go to my uh, command line again. I believe you still seeing my screen. Yes. Let's see some comments. Yes. Okay. So let me go. So I have installed .NET. I have installed .NET 7 already. Let me make the font size bigger. Right. Okay. So let's take a look what we have here, right? I have a project in Blazor, right? And I have a project in web and the minimal API, right? And what I want to do now, I'm only missing a MVC project, right? I want to see uh, how these MVC projects look like in .NET 7, right? So you can do .NET new, right? .NET new, right? And since .NET 6, right, the .NET new command changed, okay? So now, before when you do .NET new, you have the whole list of templates that you have installed, right? And now you see only a bit of that. So let's do .NET new dash list, right? .NET new dash list is going to show you the templates available, right? I want to get the MVC, right? So .NET new dash MVC, okay. You can take a look in some other display templates, right? The as a web developer, right? Usually the ones I'm most interested will be the web, right? Web API. Blazor, I'm play a lot of Blazor assembly, right? And so .NET new dash dash MVC dash O for output, right? And I will call this MVC. So this is going to give me a model view controller, right? What I'm going to do now, I'm going to do .NET new SLN, right? I want to try this in my solution file already. So I will get .NET new MVC. .NET SLN to manage the solution, add MVC, the name of the project I just created. And let me do a catch of this global JSON, right? So as you can see, we have the global JSON point for .NET 7.0.1 preview 1. Okay. I always have this project in, I always have this file in our project. Okay, I really recommend this. Right. And so let's take a look. Now I believe I can open my solution. .NET 7, I will open with Rider. Okay, it's loading my MVC project, right? And while you're restoring my MVC project, let's take a look in the template for the .NET, right? Uh, and this is a web API, right? These web APIs here use controllers and Swagger, right? Swagger and Swagger UI. So we have the web builder, right? And we have the args. This is going to give you the builder, this service collections, right? Add controllers, add my endpoints, all the service, right? A very clean configuration. You don't have more the startup. These templates here do not use the minimal APIs, right? We are going to take a look in the minimal APIs, the next one, right? And I have my HPS and I'm mapping my controllers, right? And so let's see my controllers, my typical weather forecast, API controller, right? Inheritance from controller base, right? And I have my return of enumerables here. So I'll stop this. So let's run. I'm picking the web API. Okay, this is cool. I have my Swagger, right? That's super nice. Okay, so if I send a get to this, right, let me try, and that's cool. Okay, and I can do a curve. Okay, so let's take a look in the minimal APIs now, right? These I have these using controllers, right? And let's take a look in the minimal APIs. So I have here the minimal API template, right? As you can see, the same, right? The same as .NET 6, right? Let's add a new endpoint here, right? Today, um, become .NET. So very simple to create a get, building, running. So if I do that today, okay, nice, cool. And one thing, there is one thing I don't like it. Now we have random ports running, right? Is, in my opinion, not that cool. Let's take a look in the web, right? We have some upgrades also, but now we have mostly the same unification of the startup. and also with the program.s, you have your service, right? And then you have your meters. Let's take a look in the MVC. Let's see the controller, the home controller. Okay, we have the same injection of the logger. Okay, our traditional templates. Let's see CSS. Let me see how we have the assets. Okay, static files, middleware, our famous CSS. Do you have Bootstrap? Yes, Bootstrap 4, 5, I believe. Bootstrap 5, okay, that's cool. Bootstrap 5. And jQuery, right? It's still, if you do React, right? The .NET MVC with Razor is still using jQuery, right? We have some templates for single page applications, right? And I also I also created one project with Blazor, right? I just want to show you. So I will pick add existing project. So Blazor WebAssembly, right, is basically a way for you to run C sharp code in your browser, right? How cool is that, right? You can deploy a static file website with Blazor, right? So imagine instead you can do a full stack instead JavaScript with .NET, right? Let me close all the tabs here. So Blazor, we have some changes in Blazor, and we also that is basically the file import, right? So now you are able to do upload of file Blazor and also minimal APIs, right? We have the our router, right? When I found, when I for don't found, the program dot says the same, but here we have a difference, right? I have a WebAssembly host, right? I don't have a web host. Okay. Our Razor views, right? Pretty much our user template, right? So to upgrade is going to be mostly change the package, right? It's going to be a very easy upgrade. So this is mostly the demos that I have to you, right? If you want to know more, go there. We have the blog post, right, of the announcing the preview one, and I also recommend do this talk here, right? Is the stand up team, and I recommend you watch. Is a half hour uh, video, right? Explaining mostly with Daniel Rolf and talk about the .NET 7 if you want to go into more details, right? So I believe this is all from my side. I will stop in my screen, and now I will bring Vineet to the screen. I would like to say a big hello, Vineet.
Hey Jaws, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. How about
Yeah,
you?
well, it's great here, and it's a lot to capture, lot to digest. Things that are moving in such a great pace. I don't know, like for a developer, how difficult it is going to like absorb all these changes, remain updating. That is going to be a big challenge, what I feel. But yeah, great changes coming for sure.
Yeah, it's the cool is that now you could even run two versions at the same time, right? So
Hmm.
you could keep. I don't know how much you are in .NET, but I remember in .NET Framework I had a app in a server.
Yeah.
I cannot upgrade that app because I have another app with dependence of the framework, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, but every year I believe. Uh, it is like maybe I would say too fast, too much,
Hmm.
right? But let's see.
I can understand the pain, Joes. I have been like WPF3 since there I started, and I know like how these packages and dependencies. That is a whole lot of thing to manage. Yeah. Anyways, all
But
right. So I'll request your permission to start the stage now.
yeah, I assume you can share your screen, right?
All
You are
right.
talking from India, right?
Yes, I am from India.
That's cool. That's cool. So welcome to the Bangkok community, right? We are pleased to have you here. I
Great.
assume that you can share your
Yeah.
screen, and then I can add.
Oh, just a moment. Okay.
No worries.
All right. So, can you see it?
Yes, I can see. I will
Okay.
add. Good luck for you. Okay. I will be
Mhm.
leaving the transmission. See you later.
No problem. So first of all, I like to apologize. I had to create some of these slides in a very hurry. So, anyways, let's quickly start. So today we are going to talk about a very important topic around database history and auditability. So this is like one of the pain areas that I have personally faced for about a year or so, and it's like really scratch your heads, toes, whatever you can to do that. So that is like on which I want to talk about. And with the current versions of Microsoft, actually it has changed a lot, the way Microsoft has worked out. And really hats off to those guys. So without wasting any further time, I'll quickly start. And I'll quickly brief about myself. So I am Vineet. I have around 14 years of experience in software development, cloud, have been working as a cloud and microservices architect, multiple domains, different certification, different environments. I think we can skip this part. So let's quickly see where I started to see this problem. And this is actually very important to understand like what is the problem and why this solution, in which cases this can fit out. So I was working in one of the healthcare domain applications, and there was a compliance, and you need to maintain data for X number of years, and you have to maintain all the changes. So if you are giving, let's say, paracetamol to a patient, and like those records, if you change 2 tablets to 3 tablets, all those records have to be maintained for an 11 years or so, like whatever numbers of there. Now there was an existing application which we have been doing a digital transformation, and this was using a temporal design. Now I'll just come in a moment on what is a temporal design. Let's quickly do that, but before, let's quickly see like how did we started implementing. So what we did, we started working on Cosmos DB using Azure, and we used both SQL and Mongo API as a data store for our application. Now all the data that is changed, so that has to be stored separately, which would have been pulled by a warehouse service. So this warehouse service is like responsible for all the reports and compliances, all those things it does on the top of that. So after that, we had a talk with Azure. We are your gold partner. Please provide us this service. We need this change feed tracking. So Azure did promise us that we will get you this thing working. So change tracking is like whenever there is a write in a database, that would be available as a stream to us. So okay, we agreed, but unfortunately things don't happen the way you plan out, and we were not able to get that feature working out. So what happened, we ended up with a solution like this. So this is a very simple solution that we have. So include all the abstraction, just talking about, we have application layers, we have entity framework abstractions, and we have the database layer. Database layer is the actual persistent storage where we are storing them. So this was how we planned out. Now after Microsoft come out, like it was not possible to push it to a preview or a release, we ended up something like this. So the top layers remain same, but in the middle layer, in the abstraction layer, we had to do a lot of work. So we have to apply manual interceptor whenever there's a write coming in. Then we have to find the state of the data that is changed. Now a lot of you guys who have been working with entity framework know that entity framework do support navigation very natively. Now this is a bless, it is a like a golden boom which we get. But at this point I realize it's not that good of a thing, because you have to reiterate over each of these items, track it out, and then identify like what is changed out. And then what we do is like we store those changed data separately along with the timestamps. Now this is it might seem very simple, but believe me, it took us around 2 quarters, more than 2 quarters, to do the base implementation. And then again there are a lot of changes, bugs, a lot of things did came up. So now what is temporal? You might be hearing. So temporal database design is basically it's a database design or how you store your database. So we'll just be seeing in a moment. We'll have a quick hands-on lab, try to see like how does that work out. But just to understand, temporal is a strategy how you store data into your database. Now the advantage of temporal pattern is like you can go in back in time and see like what's the state of a data at a particular point in time. So let's say as I mentioned, like a patient has, let's say, have been taking 3 paracetamols, and down the line the symptoms are down, and at this point you don't want him to have 3 tablets, let's say, once or like when needed. So those changes have to be tracked upon for auditory compliances, all those purposes. So temporal provides us a way of how that can be done. Now it has its advantages, but there are some, again, the other side of the coin, there are cons as well. And what are the cons? uh, the tables, the data has to be moved in a separate I'll come to that in a moment. So the database data that we are storing in the database, in the tables, all that data that has to be tracked out. One of the strategies like to put it into a separate table. What that does, it provides us in very easy archiving and purging. Also we can remove the clutter, the queries and everything can be very much simplified. Now on the top of that, we can apply sharding and other DBA tactics to improve the performance and storage. Auditing compliances are easily sorted out, you don't need to worry about, every data is tracked out. But there's a major problem is the query management and data layer management. So the problem is every write that you do, that has to be tracked out. Now when we started this problem, we were in a discussion mode with a lot of people around like what would be the best way, because we were at the hands of Azure change feed tracking, which was not available at that point of time, and we have a delivery to met. So there were some thoughts like, why don't we go with the triggers? Let's apply some triggers and that will automatically insert. Now that can work fine, that works actually pretty well, no doubt about that. But if we use database features, now at that point we lose, at least I'm talking about in 2020 somewhere around, so we lose some of the major aspects. For example, when using entity framework, the one of the very major advantages, like everything is available as a code. So all your entities, all your state relationships, navigation, whatever you define, that is defined in a repository as a text file, which you can maintain, you can check down the line, you can do like whatever you want. All the records are available, you can go forward in time, backward in time in the migrations. All those things can be easily done. Now the moment you move from that to your database features like triggers, you lose all those features, so everything goes out in a ocean, so you don't get anything. So that was another major problem. And when we speak of the application layer, now all the writes have to be tracked out, part one. The read queries, they should not be affected, second part. And thirdly, like if you have to track out any of the point in time data, so you have to craft out those queries. And you don't want the application to access the history tables directly, or at least it is should be in a read only mode, that calls for a separate permissions and privileges that you would need to define. So this is a basic idea. Let's say we have two table, and one is your users and other is your purchases. Now for each of these table, this applies only for those table where we need to track the data change. So each of these table we need to have separate history tables, and all the rights have to be committed to those with durability, so we cannot miss anything. Any miss could be a serious compliance problem or audit issue. So let's quickly see I'll what it is and how does it work out. I'll quickly start Visual Studio. All right, so what do we have here? So this is so I have been working on a hands-on lab on entity framework, and this project is a part of that lab. Of course I have to do some changes to like suit to this temporal design. Now if you see over here, it's a very simple project. The code is available on GitHub. I'll share the link. So if you go over here, we have this API project with very simple, no fancy, no nothing. It just has a user manager controller that is like very plain simple access layer from where we can try to hit and check the data. We'll come here in a moment. Apart from that, we have some of the abstractions for DAL layer and the contracts layer. So contract layer, we have the entity. So this simulates basically more of a production code. For example, let's say in a base entity, we have these metadata columns that we want. So please ignore this at least for this demo. But if you see some garbage values, please forgive me. So we have two tables. One is your user and other is your user role. Now again, the entities are pretty clean here. We have not maintained any of these relationships or navigations within the contracts property, contracts project. And the idea being, let's say if we want to change Dell layer or something out of it, so our this project would be able to remain clean. So how does things work out? So if we go over here in the infrastructure, and here we have some repositories pattern around that. Please ignore and extension. 1 second, let me see. Okay, so these are all repositories. I'll quickly jump to the DB context. So if you see, this is the most simplistic implementation of our database. Now just give me a moment. Let me quickly start my database and show you that as well. All right, just a moment. So what we are having over here, I'm just trying to start my SQL server so that I can show you the details. And let me quickly simplify it. Let me just add change the connection string to a new database. Where is my app settings? I'll go over here, and in the app setting I have my database. Again, this is very simple. Just changes to temporal demo, and I'll create, this was my previous demo. I'll just add new database with the same name. It should take a minute. All right, we have our database up and running. So let me just close everything. All right, cool. Oh, I closed that as well. All right. So now what we need to do, let's quickly run the migrations and see like how does the things applied, how's the state of the database that loads first. So I have, if you see some of these strings, so these are the MySQL variants, and for now there's a limitation. This doesn't run the temporal feature, so that is a sort of database dependent, which was included in SQL Server 2019, and it doesn't work out with the MySQL at least for now. Maybe down the line we should see some improvements over there. So I'll quickly add a migration over here and sorry, run the existing migrations and add them to the database, and we would be running a very simple command. So I'll have the command copy over here just to like expedite. Just let me show you one more thing which I have seen. So if we run, what we are having over here is we have the EF tools installed globally, and we are just trying to see our migrations. Now, one interesting point to note over here is like our migrations in our different project. So there are two ways. Either we like define like what is the migration assembly, which can be done something like this. If you see, that is one option of doing that. The other thing is we are using the tools. So using the tools we can give a startup project, and that defines and running that from actually the migration assembly, which is Dill's project. So this should be able to run and capture all the migrations. Just give it a moment, it will be up in a moment. And meanwhile it gets up. What has happened to Visual Studio? It always happened in the live demos. It gets slowed down. Anyways, so let's quickly. Meanwhile, so it is able to identify it. This is one of the migrations that we have in the database, and if we see, let's update the database with the latest migration. So I'm just running a simple command .NET EF database update, and after this, like once all these details are there in the database, we will be working on adding the temporal feature. So this is just the baseline of getting the application up and running. All right. So if we go over here, schemas, and we go to DBO and the table. So this is where we should be seeing something once it is fired up. And for some weird reasons, it is slow. Uh, let's live with that. Okay, meanwhile let me, all right, so by the time it runs up, let's quickly open our db context. So that should take a moment. Let me just do one thing. Let me restart Visual Studio. I think that should be able to solve the problems. And I'm sorry guys, things do happen, and let it close. So temporal, again, as I mentioned, this is one of the problem is with the SQL Server 2019, which provides a database based implementation, and that seems to be the limitation, one of the major limitation that I'm seeing. It will actually take some time for the application to productionize and like coming into the actual production use cases, and then getting to use across. It is a recent feature. Not a lot of people are using that, and just to let the Visual Studio start. So far, any questions or anything in the comments? No, I guess. All right, one second. So let it start. Meanwhile, let's try to run the same migrations again and see like if it succeeds this time. I mean, it will succeed, but if it is still taking time. Oh, we need to clean this, I guess. All right, that should work. Oh, my bad. All right, let's see now. Let's see. This ideally should run, and we should get the migrations executed in the database. Yes, I am using ReSharper. I have been like using it since a very very long time, and I know there are some pain areas who uses those know that it takes a bit of time to start that. But like I am used to pretty much how smoothly it refactors out, so that is something I can't live without. So that's why. But yeah, I think it's a great tool. And once you get used to it, you know all the shortcuts. That you then you can probably live with the little bit of slowness as well that comes as a side effect. All right, so this is starting and we have the build also running, so let it run in a parallel. Meanwhile, let's start the code. Let's not waste time. So I'll quickly open my file db contents as soon as it loads, and let me see like if anything is hogging. All right, we have succeed over here, and this is also working. So to add the temporal DB, the first thing that we need to do is we have a new function that is available over here, and to access that, what we need to do is we just need to use the default table creation, the model builder on model creating function, and we can use the new overrides. Now that does provide us a lot of features. What we can control how the database, how the tables are done, and it says entity done. Let's quickly see. So we have the two tables that we can see right over here. Let me minimize this. Sorry guys, just give me a few more moment. I am at the mercy of Visual Studio. Yes, now it's fine. So what we need to do, I'll quickly wrap it up. What we need to do is we need to use the function model builder that we have, and then entity. We need to define the which entity we are working with, just in the same line, the same design, the same way that we have been working. We can define it like this, and when we do this, we have a new method over here. So this is actually an older one where we can map the table. We need to define the name of the table, and we can use the name of property as well if you want to use the auto generated names. And for some reason it is like little bit laggy. All right. And this is the new overload that I am talking. We can use, I don't want to give feedback. All right, it should come in a moment. So we just need to define is temporal, and that works out pretty well. So that is the only thing when we need to define. Just by using this simple lambda builder, we are able to define that this table is a temporal table. Now all the bells and whistles that comes with it, creating the history table, managing the change tracking, putting those in the history table, everything that will be done directly by the database. Now once we do that, there are a few properties, few columns that are added in the history tables. Those columns are like the start and the end timestamp. Now it is taking a bit time. I'll quickly rush that part, as in like I'll try to tell you like how we can customize that. Idea was to go first natively, then using that. Let me just do that. So that is pretty simple. We can use the method overload over here, which is the builder temporal. It takes in lambda again, and here we can customize all the facets of it. So if we want to use, let's say, has period end, has period start, and use history table. So these are the three main tables or functions that we can use over here. History table, this function defines what should be the name of the history table. So for instance, if we want, by default user would be user history. So if you don't want a user history, if you want, let's say, user complete history, so at that point of time we can use the use history table, and there we can uh, just pass in something like this, and this will do the work. So with that we can control those aspects. But for now we can just let it be like that only. Let's quickly move to the builder dot start and end, because these are like the interesting ones that we should generally change. Otherwise the default properties that comes with are the valid from and valid till. So I'll quickly change the name of this to start from, and and start, sorry, start date, and let's call the other property molder dot has end period end, and let's call that and date. So this should be pretty fine. Now let's quickly try to add migration over here, because we have a schema change, and for that schema change we need to add a new migration for that to apply. So again, we'll go with the same command that we've used. If you know .NET EF database, we remove the database, and we have .NET EF .NET EF migrations. Then we have a add, and then we have a name, temporal feature added. I'll just do it that, and again it will take a while, and by the time it happens we can see the some other code as well. So by the time it runs, let me quickly show you the other areas, the controller that we are going to use. So we have this not this one, we have this controller over here. This is a user manager controller, and what it does, it provides a sort of methods and functions we can access that. Now this is a very simple no, sorry, no abstractions around here, just directly calling database. I know it's a very very bad practice to smell, but let's for the sake of this demo, let's move with that. Oh, that was pretty fast. So we have the migrations added, and if we go and let's quickly see what it has generated. So if we go into the migrations, and if you go this particular migration over here, so you will see it has users history. This is a new table that it has added over here, and then two columns that we mentioned, start date and end date. So all that it has mentioned, We can also manage the schema over here. There are different functions. I'm not sure if those are publicly available, but from the feature, from the framework perspective, those are a certain possibility. And those features can be used if you want. Let's say the history tables, the temporal tables are or should be available only to a specific schema. Let's say audit schema, if you create something other than DBO. Sorry. So you can control all those aspects. And likewise, if you see, we have the other date time properties, start date and end date, default values being generated. Now, interesting thing to know, all the table and the property that we are seeing, these are a shadow property, so they are not directly available with the code. We'll see that in a moment if we want to access them at certain point of time, how we can do that. But generally these are all shadow, you cannot directly access those. So let's quickly add the migration again in the database, and I think it should not take more than a moment. Let's see. All right, so these are the up and then down. The beauty and advantage of entity framework migrations, we can navigate forward and backward in time. Now going back to our controller, this is pretty simple controller, and to execute these methods I have a very simple postman collection that I try to generally run, which is visible over here. So three simple methods: get all history, get all roles, and update user. So let's quickly see. Build succeeded. It should take a moment, and we have the done. So if you see what changes have we done now, we have just updated our DB context with the set, the three lines that we have added. That's it. We have not done anything as of now. And if we just go to the database and if we like do a refresh, we see the history table is right over here. And I'll just do a quick comparison to show like what columns are there. So if you see all the columns that we have in the parent table, let me just maximize this. So all the tables that we have, user ID, role name, created by, created on, the meta tables, so all those are there. In addition to that, there are two more columns, the start date and end date, that defines the validity of record. So because temporal means point in time, in very simple words, we should be able to go in back in time. So these two properties help us define at what point we want to go back. So with that we can control that. So, and of course we have the migration history, which maintains everything. Now let's quickly add a few seed records to quickly expedite our work. 1 second. I have some boilerplate code which I'll just put it over here. So I've added two users with two different user IDs, and again, we have to add the migrations. Why? Because there is a change in our data or the DB context. So let's quickly add that seed data added, and once we add that, then we update the database. So one more quick update by the time it runs. So there's a new option called migration bundles that can be pretty handy in case you are trying to see how you can run all these migrations, all these seed data as a part of your CI/CD pipeline. That is really really handy. So we have to do a lot of work earlier, but now with the migration bundle, even the CI/CD pipeline and provisioning, all those aspects are like very much simplified. So probably we can cover that in some other video, like integration with the CI/CD pipeline and all these things. Let's quickly hit the database update and see like if the records are there or not. I don't think it should take more time. I should have given a verbose, so that probably should have given you like what's happening behind the scenes.
Vineet, sorry, can you increase a bit the font size
All right,
in Visual Studio?
console.
In Visual Studio?
Oh, Visual Studio. Sure, Jos. You should have let me know earlier. Is it better now?
Yes. I believe yes. Perfect.
All right,
Thank you.
cool. Well, let me increase this as well, just in case. All right, so we have this setup. We should have a seed data. Let's quickly validate that and move to the use case on how we can actually consume that. So we have the two retorts now in history table. Since this is the first retort, there is should not be any data in the history table, which is visible right over here. Tables are empty. Now, what we are trying to do, let's say there is an application which is running, and we would be trying to update our retort. So to do that, I have a very simple method over here. So if you just see what it does, we are passing an id. It's an optional parameter. If we don't pass it, just use the default one. So we fetch the user, we update the date of birth to date time dot now, and we pass in the db.save changes. So very simple operation, nothing too fancy, nothing too complex, just to highlight like how does it work. So we are not changing any of the history table directly. That all is managed by the sql server and the entity framework. After that, we just query again to get the latest retorts, all the retorts, and just return those back. So let me fire it. Let me fire the application and quickly show that in the postman. Where's my postman? Here's my postman. And how do I? All right. Is it started? One second. All right, I think it should have started. Okay, let me just pull up the debug as well. Let's see what record it gives. So I have the postman. Let's get the what is that all roles. One second. Yeah, let's update a user. So very simple request. Just updating the user with a default of one. So I just fire that. It's a post method. All right. So if you see, we have the method being executed. There are two retorts, no retorts being modified. But if we now go into our database, there we will see the users first. Let's go there. And let me just refresh. So if you see over here, the date of birth is like default one. Let's refresh it. So it is updated to the latest one. Now let's try to see the users history table, and it has a record and it has a relative value of like what was the previous one. So that date of birth, the previous value, that all that record is maintained. The interesting part to note over here is these start and end date. So these are like automatically computed by Visual Studio. Let me just try to collapse these and show these particular columns. I'm not sure if I can zoom in a bit on this one. Never tried it. But you should get the idea. So we have a start date and end date. If we try to hit the request a few more times to update the user, let's actually do that a few times. One, two, three, and let's update another user. Let's update this as well. Okay, we need to pass in as a parameter. Let's do this now. So we have updated it four times. So ideally there should be four records around this other than this. So if you see, all these records are automatically added without being doing anything. And the users table, that is pretty much clean, all updated with the latest value, current values, without any complexities, any nitty-gritties. So that works pretty well, and you don't have to do anything for that. All that is managed under the hoods, and the performance and all those aspects are also taken care of by the framework. Now, so that is part one. That is how like the basic temporal works. There are different functions, we'll quickly discuss in a moment. But what's the purpose? So I don't have the access to my users table. Like if I want to do that in a point in time, how can I do that? How can I access the history of the table? Well, that is also pretty easy. And let me just quickly show the code first. So I have a method over here that's called get all history, and it is basically using the projections. And if you see what I mentioned, we cannot access these properties over here around that. So we have to use the ef property uh, accessor, and with that we can need to pass in the name of the shadow properties. So it's pretty simple. We use the dbcontext.users, which is the default one. On the top of that, we have to use the temporal all. So temporal all basically searches across the history, all the records in the base. It merges, it find the history, it find the record for all that user and fetches those. And then we have a condition, we wanted to do that for a particular user id. Okay, cool. And then we are using an order by, and then we are using projections to generate a random object, uh, sorry, a new object, and it has a valid from, valid to, like till when it started till when it ended. And then we have, all right, and then we have the tool list async method, which basically executes the list, execute the reader, and return that. So let's try to hit it and see like what does it do. So where is my postman? Postman. Here my postman. So I'll, this is the method, get all history, and let's fire it for the default user, the user number one. Okay, I think I need to pass in my the query parameters. ID. This should work. This should work. Let's try. All right. So if you see, we have all the records for the user, and we have employee, which you can see over here. This is the first record, and this record was valid from this till this date. Now this is really interesting. We are querying point in time, and we are fetching all the records. Now this query can be updated to fetch any particular point in time queries as well, which is like pretty much faster and don't have to do that. And if we like see all the records, all the updates that we have done are straight over here. And if we just try to see for the other user, there should be only one record, which is pretty much like since the starting, when we inserted it first, and till the eternity. So that's the valid record. And if we go back, one second, let me just quickly show you one more thing over here. So okay, the last record, if you see, so the last record is valid from the time it is updated, and it will be valid till the, like the maths, date time dot maths values, it will be valid uh, till then. So that's the base idea on how we can query the temporals. Now how, what are the different areas, functions, what we can do. So temporal do provide certain areas. So temporal as of, let me just quickly do that. Okay, so we have temporal as of, which is like the exact point in time where you want to query at a particular point in time. Temporal all we have just seen. Temporal from to defines these date times, inclusive. Between is like exclusive of the timestamps that you provide, and contained is in a particular window. So all these functions are given by default in the framework. And I think to the cases like what I have seen, the use cases, I think these should be pretty much good in at least most of the use cases where we want to use this sort of functionality. And given like it's the first version, we have this general release, and as more feedback would come in, more users would come in, it will evolve, I would say, more in a much random faster pace. Now two things I already mentioned, there are certain restrictions. As of now, this is a SQL server only. You cannot use MySQL, you cannot use Postgres, and this is a database dependent. You need to have a SQL Server 19 instance for this to work. This is the current limitation. But for any of the users who are like already using that that version, let's say you are already on SQL Server, it should not be a problem. It should be like pretty straightforward. Don't have to do any of the design application. All those changes can be straight away removed, directly jump into. All right. So that's pretty much, guys, that I have for today. Do we have any questions? Any queries? Jaws, you like to quickly uh, point
So,
out?
well, an amazing talk. I love it. I would like to discuss a bit
Mhm.
about the temporal table, right?
Yep.
We have a dependence from the SQL Server. It's because the CDC is the change history. Because I imagine the way this is implemented, right?
Hmm.
Or if it's something in the anti-framework side, like
Hmm.
how this works.
So I'm assuming, Josh, again to be like very frank, I have not gone under the hoods to check out the exact features. Like, is it a CDC or is
Mhm.
it what feature? Like, does it support? But what I the documentation that I have scratched upon, basically it says like you need to have this temporal feature in the SQL Server. So since I have not used that in the SQL Server directly, I don't know like whether it's a CDC or let's say they have some another feature that has been added on the top of CDC for temporal support in the SQL Server. So that would be, I think, one area need to scratch upon, check upon.
Okay, that's cool. And
Hmm.
you mentioned for a while there is only SQL Server support, but MySQL is coming in the future, right?
I am assuming so. MySQL or MariaDB, like these are the pretty common ones that are being used, and I think Postgres should also be included. So this is again my assumption. I am putting it out loud, but ideally they should bring it that because if you see under the hoods, it's all entity framework that is doing all the magic, like generating the transitions, putting the data into the table. Some features might be used for sure. That is something that I need to check. But yeah, again, a lot of these under the hoods are managed by the entity framework. So I think it should ideally come for Postgres and MariaDB as well. But those are not directly maintained by Microsoft, so timelines cannot be guaranteed
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
on those links. Yeah,
In this case, it's community, right? I
yes,
believe some of the providers will be open source, right? So
definitely. Hmm.
yeah, anyone can build your own.
Hmm.
For the audience, do you have any question? Any other question for Vinet? If you are on Facebook, you can leave your like and your comment later, or if you are in YouTube, right? Please add your comment. Eventually, we pass to see, and we could eventually reply back to you. Uh, but I believe so. For today is this, Vinet. It's a pleasure to meet you. I
Same
hope you
here.
work.
Yep,
Have a
same
good
here,
night.
Jose. Bye bye. Good night. See you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Nice to meet you. Take
Same
care.
here. Bye bye.
Bye bye.